Hello, and thank you for joining me this morning for Geezers of Gear, episode number 200 from the Canadian Rocky Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Act Entertainment. Nearly every project brings unique constraints and criteria for lighting control. There's always a request for integration with other systems, and everything needs to be smart and easy to use and maintain. Not an easy task, even on the largest projects. That's why Act Entertainment is thrilled to be distributing the Visual Productions line of incredible control products, designed for continuous and reliable deployment in installations as well as live events. These versatile and easy-to-use devices deliver on the promise of complete project integration on budget. If you are obsessive about control, the Visual Productions lineup was made just for you. Learn more by visiting Act Entertainment. And today's episode is also brought to you by Stratum Productions. Bringing clarity and order to the chaotic event industry, Stratum is your single-source pro AVL rental and design resource, proudly servicing shows and special events throughout North America. Founded in the Heartland, the company's Midwest values, relentless pursuit of perfection, and relationship-driven customer focus help separate them from the rest. From the first downbeat to the final curtain call, the Stratum Pro team of industry titans are committed to providing the best gear and technical support available to help you create immersive events that will leave crews thankful and crowds speechless. To learn more about this great company, please visit stratumpro.com. And of course, never forget Geezers Blend. So Geezers of Gear has created this special blend of coffee with Coffee Cult. You can go there by visiting www.coffeecult.com and search for Geezers Blend. Geezers Grind. And Geezers Grind will be donating, Coffee Cult will be donating all of the proceeds from the sale of Geezers Grind to Roby Backstage, which benefits people in our industry with either health or other concerns. And so all of the profits from this coffee go there. And by the way, it's great coffee. I drink it every day. So please visit coffeecult.com and order your own Geezers Grind today and support people in our industry. Have you ever used this software? There, you're back.
No, I have no idea what you have.
You're back. People have no idea then what you were just saying. They were like sitting here watching your mouth move and stuff. I'm still learning my new software. It's called Ecamm Live, and it's supposed to be really easy, but apparently I'm a fairly simple human. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Patrick Whalen here with us today, and I appreciate you joining me, Patrick. I'm looking forward to catching up. I think I had you on the podcast during the ugly 2020 period when all of us had nothing but time to sit and talk online all day.
And we did frequently.
We did an awful lot, actually. You were part of the whole Red Alert Restart.
Yep.
Yeah, you were one of the guys running it.
Happy hours, I have to say. The happy hours were like kind of my little highlight.
Yeah.
Now I don't have any time to even have my own happy hour.
It's funny because I miss some part of it. Like near the end, it got where people were just becoming unruly, like where people were just angry and I want to work and you're in my way, bastard, And so, I mean, there were moments, like I can remember a few moments where it got a little weird or heated or whatever. And I was just sitting there thinking, why do I do this? Like, it's not like I was getting paid to do it or anything, but.
But when you have the cast of degenerates that you have, like myself included, it's going to get unruly, and especially if you add a little cocktail in the mix, and then people not working for 400 or 500 days.
Politics certainly didn't hurt. Yeah. Politics.
But overall, it was good to see everybody and connect, and it's sort of I think for me, your happy hours were like that mental kind of stimulus that I needed, just
a weekly check-in.
Just to see my friends and all the people you make fun of in catering are there too. So
tell a story, hear a story. For what it was a really great thing, and still I mean, at least once a week, somebody says to me, you know, that was really cool. That was like one of the highlights of COVID, if there is such a thing as a highlight from COVID, was
Yep.
just getting to know people better that I didn't know. Like so many relationships, you know, were formed. Well, you know, I think you were one of them. You and
Yeah.
Dearson really connected through the weekly Zooms, I think, right?
That's Patrick Dearson you're speaking of?
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard of
No,
him.
no, Mother Teresa Dearson.
That's
The other
probably what
one, you know,
he is.
some other. There is only one Dearson, although
There really is. He's like a Tigger.
Madonna. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But no, you guys basically connected through, like, you knew each other, but you kind of connected through those Zoom calls, right?
Yeah, I'd had the pleasure of meeting like a lot of people through John Dunn and dinners and
Yeah.
so like Herrick and I'm trying to think of who else, Dearson and a couple other people that
Yeah.
you know I'd met and we'd hung out a few times and then you know seen each other's work and or been around each other. So yeah, it was you know and the other thing is that like with Red Alert, I think one of the things of actually physically getting to do a gig was you for so long in our business because everything moves so fast you kind of are very surface level with people like
Right.
you don't really get to talk to them like I hadn't talked to Grattan in 15 years and we've known each other forever
Yeah.
but Red Alert we got to work together again and we had downtime and then having Stuart Ross on site and having Bud on site you know it was like this kind of reunion that was sort of an impromptu reunion that was really cool to
Yeah.
have and be a
It
part of
was.
and you
Yeah.
know and everybody's input and everybody became so passionate on that project but even your happy hours we you know we got to learn about each other a little bit more and like
Hell
you
yeah.
know the stuff that you would never even on tour buses like you know you it's tour buses are like surface level to some degree because I usually don't want to have deep conversations with anybody I'm on tour with because I don't want to get into their drama because of, you
Yeah.
know, and it's my own selfish thing and it's the way I've always been is I want to do my job. I want to be your friend, but that's where it kind of ends. And
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that, you know, you had depression 10 years ago and almost killed
Right.
yourself or anything. I mean, that's a tragedy and it is, but at the same time, I got enough stuff going on
Well,
that
you need to keep sort of an arm's length sort of relationship in
and
some
it's
of those
hard.
situations.
But with your happy hour, I think all the guard was down. I mean,
We were
one
all very vulnerable. You know, we
we
were
were
an industry on its knees.
yeah, and there was no hierarchy. There wasn't, you know, I'm a designer, and you're a programmer, and you're a roadie or a production manager. It was all everybody was on an even playing field. Maybe for the first time ever in our lives, because
Yeah.
there was your job title meant nothing because
Yeah.
you weren't working. So it was
Well,
kind of cool.
I spoke with a founder and CEO of a very large company in our industry, and I'm not going to mention who, but just a couple of weeks ago, and he said to me, he said, I can't believe how vulnerable I became during that period. And, you know, like even sometimes on your happy hours, I was spilling my guts about how bad things were and stuff like that. But he said, in a sense, it was very helpful. It was almost, you know, like some sort of a medical intervention, you know, that really made me feel better and kept me from having a heart attack and dying, you know, from stress. But no, I mean, you call it my happy hour, and this sounds really cheesy, but really it wasn't mine. I was the ringleader that got it going, and then everybody
Yeah.
else kind of kept it going. When you know, when it got to a point where it looked like sort of the life had been sucked out of it, then I just ended it. So I kind of was the conductor who started it, and then the, you know, the demon who ended it or whatever, right? And but everybody else was sort of you know, the people who made it happen. So yeah, it was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed it. You were a big part of it.
What wasn't one of the last ones the Tim Brennan happy hour?
Yeah, we did that, and we also did, and I don't remember which came before which. I think that was the last one that we did, but there was also a Red Alert Restart like reunion.
Yeah, I didn't get that invite.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
I think you might have been on it, where we all just kind of talked about how cool it was and some different funny stories about, you know, like some of those, what did they call them? where they couldn't get permission to light buildings. So they were getting
that was us all the time.
They were getting these flatbeds with lights on the back of them and just going out and driving around and lighting buildings.
That was the Vegas kids, right? The Vegas
no,
guys.
Somebody else did it. I know Vegas did it a little bit, but
I forget. Yeah,
somebody in the Midwest, I can't remember who it was, but they did it very successfully, and I think they pissed some people off. You can't put those lights on our building. Oh yes, I can. You know, go find the law that says I can't light up your building from the street. You know. So no, that was really, really, you know, I know everyone looks at COVID as such a horrible period of time, and I do for some reasons. Like, it separated people so much politically. Like, you either love masks or you hate masks. You're either somebody who wants 42 different vaccines in your arm, or you're a denier. You're a vaccine anti-vaxxer. You know. How about the moderate people who go, well, let me think about that vaccine. You know, is it good? Is it safe? You know, do I really need it? Am I going to get sick without it? Like, how about using my mind, using common sense? But, you know, so there was that. There was the fact that it really separated people and made people angry at each other.
Yeah, it really did.
Really angry at each other. Like, just like tear your face off angry at each other. But good things came of it, you know, and I think, there's a lot of really stupid businesses in our industry right now who, you know, I'm seeing pictures of guys buying new cars and airplanes and boats and stuff, like, you know, the money's never going to end. And I think that they're going to end up in trouble at some point because, you know, the chairs, you're going to run out of chairs in this game of musical chairs at some point. And it is going to get a little harder again to make that kind of money. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I think for the most part, businesses got smarter. They got leaner. They got smarter. They started doing things a lot better. They started, like, it cleared away all the muck on top of stuff to where you could really see the bottom and you could see where the real problems were in your businesses and develop better habits and stuff.
I agree with that to some degree. I think that one problem that I'm seeing now post-COVID is because everybody had to run so lean, obviously businesses and like individuals are trying to refill their coffers. And I think that we got rid of a lot of dead weight. We also lost a lot of really, really good people because their wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, had them home for 500 days or whatever it was.
Right.
We realized that, hey, you know, one, I should stay home, or two, they're not leaving. Like, the significant other was like, you've been home now for 500 days, get a real job or get a different job or something, but I want you staying here. And you know, there was a lot of that. But
yeah, they got used to having a normal husband or wife. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other side of that is that it also sucked common sense out of a lot of people in the higher ups and the people that we all have to deal with now, to the point where things that were common sense of, like, I'll give you a great example. I had 4 forklift drivers and 3 forklifts because the client didn't want to pay for the 4th forklift. And this is recently. So that kind of dumb shit is going on all the time. And it's a constant battle of, yes, you need to make money, and yes, your ROI is not as great as it used to be. Completely got all that. But we also have to have common sense to be able to pull off these productions in a timely fashion in the budget that you want. And you making dumbass decisions right now, trying to cut the budget because you're trying to fill the hopper up again. I get it, but there's got to be a breaking point, and it's got to be within reason.
Yeah.
And so I'm running into that constantly. I ran into it all the time last year. I had 2018, 2019 contracts that were now being fulfilled last year in 2022, and 2019 and 2020 budgets and estimates that were so far away from what reality was now. Yeah. That, you know, like, dumb shit was happening.
Well, that's one of the things that I heard recently from a company owner, a production company owner, I'd say mid-size, probably a $10 or $12 million, maybe $15 million production company. And what he said is, we're booking shows, you know, now for like January or December or February of next year. And what's happening is when you get to that show date, labor rates are 25% higher than they were when you bid it. You know, sub rentals are costing more money. Gear is less available. Trucking is more expensive, whatever it is. And so I go from making a profit to actually losing money on a show. And so, you know, my top line revenue's insane right now. Like I never dreamed I'd be making this much money top line revenue, but bottom line is in some cases not only smaller, but, you know, almost non-existent. And
Yeah.
I'm really worried. Like he said to me, I'm more worried today than I was during COVID. You know, during COVID, I knew that I could find a way to save my business. Now I don't, it's spinning to a point where it might get to a point of being out of control. Debt might be too high, costs might be too high, and it just might implode on itself. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's I guess one of the things that we watch like a hawk right now is the budgets and just what we're agreeing to, and
Right.
I probably have 20 projects that have been spinning, and you know, nobody's wanting to pull trigger, nobody's wanting to sign contracts, but yet the legal bills still happen. The lawyers, you know, doing these contracts, because some of them are kind of weird contracts. We can get into that in a little bit of versus deals and stuff for even us. And so it makes it a little trickier. So we have to make sure, there you go. We
I
have to make
zoomed
sure
it.
that we, you know, we're watching the bottom line as well. But like, I mean, touring in Europe last year, it was a disaster. Like we tried, I got a call while we were in the production company doing pre-production. Tour hasn't left yet. And the client calls me up and says, I'm not joking. Oh, this was Easter Sunday last year. And he said, I'm not joking. We're $1 million in the red. And the tour is like 80% sold out. I said, how in the fuck does that happen? He said, the CFO who I fired this morning took all the seating behind the arena and put those as part of for sale for the estimated budget. And we're $1 million in the hole. And the set that they built had some company that wasn't, you know, a touring set builder. So the carts were 18 feet long, didn't fit down. And Europe trucks are shorter and they're, you know, smaller. So, and the ramps are much tinier. So you can imagine that disaster. And you're going
Wow.
into the theaters. And so about week 2 of the tour, or actually, I mean, day 1 of the tour, the caterers are like we had our own tour catering, so you got to carry your own food catering, otherwise you're in trouble. And they're trying to get money to go buy groceries, and you know, I'm fighting with the owner and the producer of this event, of this tour, and he's like, no, he's like, tell them that they should go put it on their card and I'll reimburse them, like just crazy stuff. So they quit, and then we turn it into starting to order food from menus, and then
Wow.
you know, it gets to, we have P&E who had just resumed ferry service, you know, globally or in Europe. And then the Brits are like, well, wait, you don't have any Brits on here, because they had a bunch of foreign nationals from other countries running the P&E. And they're like, they can drive the ferries wherever they want. They just can't come into British waters. And so there were only 2 ferries a day that could hold the trucks and the buses.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, like, it was the perfect storm of shit. And then we get to Berlin, and our crew hadn't eaten in like 18 hours.
What?
You know, we'd been eating on the bus. So I will say this on camera. I'm not proud of it, but we did a walk-off. And the client calls me up from New York and is like, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, these people are humans. They're not animals. You need to feed them. They're going to stay off until they get fed, and then they're going to go back to work. And I don't care about your show. And he's like, well, I don't care about the crew. I'm like, that's obvious.
Yeah.
And this battle went on and on. And then finally the straw was they started cutting stagehands. The assistant in New York started cutting stagehands and runners. So I'd have a runner from 8 a.m. until noon, and then the rest of the day was just a free for all. Like, you know, if you need anything, get an Uber. So we had some choice words, and I said, this will be my last day. And I said, I have a plane ticket home out of Austria. I'm done. And
wow.
the scary thing was I had to put my box back on the truck and they tried to steal my work box, and the crew pushed it. We were in Manchester like a week later, where my work box was going to get picked up, and EFM saved my ass. They beelined it there, and the crew had pushed the work box outside of the arena behind the building for EFM to come pick it up. Thank you.
Wow.
And loaded it in the truck, and there was another cartage company that was coming in, or came in an hour later looking for my work box to steal it.
But is that kind of shit common? Like treating people that badly? Is that common right now? Because if it is,
that was like the end all be all of horrible tours, because it was just, constantly, like, every little nickel and dime thing was happening. There are nickel and dime things that happen on every tour, and it's happened since the 80s when I started. But it seems to be getting dumber and worse now. Like,
I guess in their defense, these people are all under pressure too, because they've got some, public company board who's like just hammering them on a daily basis, saying you need to cut this by 7% or you're fired and the whole department's fired and I'm going to kill your family.
Yeah, I mean, this one was privately held, and
yeah. I'm not trying to defend indefensible actions like not feeding the crew. That's just insane. But the pressure is all the way through is the only point I'm trying to
absolutely.
make. Yeah.
The tour I did last fall, which people that know me know which tour it was.
I do.
was funny because you started out like, I always judge how the tour is doing by the catering, because by the end of the tour, if you get like, those little cereal boxes, individual cereal boxes, and like a half a carton of milk sitting out for catering for breakfast,
yeah,
that the tour is doing not so.
It's going bad.
We had omelet bars starting out, and like, the first week they're cutting meat off of the carving station and putting it on your plate.
Oh boy!
By like week 4, it's like, yeah, just put it in there, hit 1, and it'll cook. It'll be done in 30 seconds. Like, so, yeah, and granted, the corporation that owned that tour was a big one, had 2 words in it, unlike the 3 letters,
right?
And they've got to watch their bottom line, and I get it. And when tours start sucking air, they've got to make cuts, and I get it, I understand it. Is it great? No, but that's a part of the deal. That
at the same time, like, and I don't want to bag on anybody too much, but when they're public companies and you can look at their financials and they're doing pretty damn well, and our profit was only 27 million this quarter instead of 29 million, we're gonna have to make some cuts. Yeah,
there was a CEO from a company I just read. Well, actually, I'll even say it because it doesn't matter. It's Live Nation. I think Rapinoe made or got, with bonuses, it was $130 million last year, or this year, sorry. On track to make 130.
Holy shit. And
I'm just saying that you could have gotten a little bit more on the omelet bar. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. No, wow. Now that's not good. And I've seen, there's some people that you expect it from, but there's other people that I don't expect it from, where they're putting pleas of help on social media, where it's like, I'm losing my mind. If I don't get a break soon, I'm going to, explode. And, I need mental health, counseling or whatever. Like, some people are being so pushed to the limits right now on the road. And, the early version of me a couple of years ago, right after COVID, was like, suck it up, sunshine. You haven't worked for 18 months, be happy. But that's over now. And everybody needs some semblance of normalcy back, to where you have free time and you have balance in your life. Right.
I'll tell you that the funny thing was, not touring for a long, long time. I mean, I hadn't been riding a tour bus in probably 10 or 15 years. Yeah. And I have a different view on a lot of things. Like, I hate whiners. I don't get millennials, and I'm going to sound really old for a second. I'm not putting everybody in the same box. I'm just saying that there was just unwritten rules of the road that you just didn't violate. And, I think people are way more sensitive now, and also coming out of COVID, they don't know how to physically socially interact.
Yeah.
So tempers flare a lot quicker, and alcohol is way more apparent than, I mean, you know, I'd seen on the road, and I was guilty of it too. I mean, I'd have a couple of beers every night after the show at midnight and
So
scotch.
you're saying that alcohol was a bigger problem now, like post COVID, than it was
I
before
don't,
in
yeah, I
your?
don't know if it was, yeah, yeah. I think that, especially with some of the more seasoned guys that I've known that I brought out, I was shocked to see, like, they would polish a bottle of Jack Daniels off and then go to gin or something. It was like, holy God, and
Wow.
these guys would get up in the morning and do their job again. But I mean, like, the binge drinking level was something I hadn't seen, and it happened
Huh.
in Europe and it happened in the U.S. So, and I'm not saying it's on every tour.
Yeah.
It maybe it's just because I'm on the bus and everybody just wants to drink and so they can
Yeah.
tolerate me. That's very
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But I think that the level of just issues that were on buses, I've
It
never
was
seen it.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was different.
it was really bad. I mean, you know, there was a lot of, like, pushing the boundaries, and it really got weird in the U.S. and even, actually, no, it got weird in both places where we're so used to having it be sort of a old male dominated business, and now we have production coordinators, and now we have front of house engineers that are female, and that's awesome. But we
It
don't
creates for
have,
some unusual dynamics, though,
yeah, we don't have
on a
the
tour.
education level for um, dealing with these people on the road, and the etiquette, and like,
I was talking to somebody about this exact topic very recently, somebody very, very high up in the industry who is trying to do something about that. They're putting together, um, HR basically for touring personnel where, not only are there rules and things like that, but just education, training, constant updates, a place that you can outreach to, like, I'm on tour, my butt hurts, I'm sad because my feelings have been hurt or whatever. You've got somebody that you can talk to about that who will probably
that's going to
say,
be
hey, guess what? The road's tough. You might
that,
want to
yeah,
go
that's going
home,
to be a tough one. I mean, I get it. Like, but you know, when I first started touring, we settled things either between the trucks or in the semi trailer. Like that.
Yeah.
That's and that's just it. You got thumped, and if you screwed up or did something dumb, you got a stern talking to. Um, but they also, the buses will, right, wrong, or indifferent, will sort of police themselves, and so we've had crew members, threaten each other because they said something inappropriate to a female, and as the production manager, I'm the first one that's got to intervene because I don't want to fight on my bus, and I don't want anybody on my bus, male or female, to feel uncomfortable. And because I think we've been locked up for so long, our social uh, policing and just being considerate of others kind of went out the window because we haven't interacted with people. So you're riding on a bus all of a sudden
Well, I think
with,
that's happened in both directions. Like
yeah,
I think people's version of, what they need to feel okay or whatever has also increased very, very much so. Like people's feelings
100%.
get hurt a little more easily now than they did maybe certainly 20 years ago when you and I were a little younger, but even 5 years ago, like now, it's very different, and it's much more sensitive, and it's much, and I struggle with it, trust me. I have a big mouth. I'm sure you run into trouble every once in a while. i
Oh, yeah.
talked I talked to our friend Wiseman about this occasionally. Like, we've had to change, obviously, the way that we talk to people because some people take offense when no offense was meant. It's just the way I talk, or it's just being funny or whatever. But I guess in some situations being funny ain't okay anymore. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a learning experience, and I step in shit every once in a while and have to apologize to people because I never intend to hurt people. I'm not a fighter. I'm not somebody who wants to hurt people ever, right? But sometimes what they see as hurt, I see as fun. and it's a balancing act, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think that tempers are much shorter now. And I mean, I just had an incident last Thursday, or I guess Friday morning, when we were doing loadout with an event company. And, as a nice guy, said, you can have 2 spaces in the dock for your furniture, and I'll take 2 spaces in the dock for my production. And that was agreed upon. And then, sure enough, at loadout, my dock master calls me up and he's like freaking out because there's 20 trucks from the event company lined up trying to weasel their way in, and our trucks aren't there yet because we're still doing loadout, and we're having this drop down fight. And he's like screaming at me, and I'm like, I'm not screaming at you. And I'm like, nothing you're going to do is going to intimidate me. You're just going to piss me off. And then I'll start doing things like get a forklift and block the entire loading dock so none of us can load out. Like, I'm the wrong guy to mess with. And it wasn't violent. I just wanted him to shut up.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. I'm like, again, like, you can threaten me all you want. You're just going to irritate me. You're giving me a headache. And they're screaming at me like foam's coming out of their mouth. It's a guy and a girl. And I'm like,
but is that just that same symptom that we were talking about a few minutes ago, where pressure is so intense coming down from here to here to here to here to here to here to here, and by the time it gets to here, it's just like on fire, right?
And the people that are winning are the people that just sit there like this and go, when you're done, then I'll talk to you. And if you need a moment to walk away, and the guy is just like blowing up. But you're right. I mean, like, they go from 0 to 100, not even 60 anymore, in like a nanosecond. And then on top of it, yes, I get it. You've got to watch the budget. You've got to watch the labor budget. But we all have to work in the same stupid confined space, whether we like it or not. And I'm pretty diligent on how I structure things so that it's accommodating both to anybody on the production side, but everybody else. Like, I get it. We all have to do our job. I'm not saying we have to be out first, then you guys can come in. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying fair is fair. We had an agreement. If you don't want to follow it, that's totally fine. But you're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting. So, like, what would you say is your greatest challenge right now? Like, is it personnel?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of greatest challenges. The one is that I have yet to ever do a project. I mean, not that it didn't happen pre-COVID, where I call it the minus. What are we minus right now? Oh, we're minus 10. Of course we are. And I ask every labor coordinator that every site. I walk in, I meet them, whether it's local one or whether it's a offshoot of a labor company. I always ask them, what are we minus right now? Be honest with me. I don't care. I just want to know because I can adjust.
And you mean minus people, right?
Yeah, and I'm always minus at least 10 people on every call.
Jesus.
And I could up at 10, and then I'd be minus 20. Like, it doesn't help, And a lot of it, there's a lot of different reasons why that is, but and then the people that you have, if you have 100 people on your call, 40 of them are going to be good, maybe, and the rest of them are brand new, don't know anything. And I've gotten older, and I've gotten wiser, and I've gotten nicer, and I'll tell you why. I said, when we do our safety meeting, or we're doing our intro, who's first day? You? Great. I want to know everybody's first day. Nothing special will happen. I'm going to wristband you with a green wristband. That way I know you're new. My crew knows you're new. And then when you screw up, you're not going to get your head chopped off.
We used to do that in kart racing, by the way. When my son first started kart racing, if it was your first race, they put an X before your number on the back of your cart so that people knew.
Oh, really?
Like, when I'm going to pass this kid, he might move the wrong direction. So I got to be a little more careful, right?
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, and Jake Berry and I had a discussion about this a long time ago. And we were talking about, we as senior people in the business sometimes are so set in our ways that we expect out of 250 people or 100 people that they know the job.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as we all know, is an unrealistic expectation. And so not that I'm there to educate, but I'm also not there to make it your last day. Like I
Yeah.
have zero interest in having you quit because we need you.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
need you to keep working when I come back to the city. So, you know, it's fine. And I always tell them, if you don't know something, just ask, but
Well,
don't.
everybody has a first day.
Yeah,
You know, we've all had a first day, right?
yeah.
Like,
But I'm like, you just ask. Like
yeah.
we're here to help.
Yeah.
And sometimes the labor companies will be like, I got you 20 green guys. I'm like, I'll take them. They
So
can
you
push
said
things.
40 out of 100 would be good, and the other 60, you know, may either be brand new or just not very good. What was that number pre-COVID?
I
If
would
it's
say you'd
40
have
now.
60 or 70. I would say it's over half. I would say you'd have 60 or 70 on a 100-person call that were, you know, good.
Yeah.
You'd have another 10 that were amazing. And then the other 10 were just absolute shit.
Yeah, a relatively normal mix that you'd expect anywhere,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I still remember really quick the one of the funniest things I've ever seen happen was I was doing a winter music conference in Miami, and then we were going to do like an offshoot of EDC or of Ultra for a couple of clients. We were at some hotel. I needed like 80 people, and it was a late call. It was a late project. We beelined the gear from LA to Miami. Don't ask why. The client wanted it. So we get there, and these two Jamaican dudes walk up, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been working all day. We're pretty tired, man. So we're gonna be on these lounge chairs."
Really?
So they literally sat in these lounge chairs, and I walk over, and I'm like, I go, "No, guys, you're not doing this. Get up." And they're like, "No, we're not getting up." So after about 5-10 minutes, I said, "I'm not going to ask. I'm just telling you, leave." So they leave, and as they're leaving, not with my knowledge, all of their friends are on the crew. So they're like, "Come on, man, we're leaving. Fuck these guys."
Oh no.
I'm
You
like, all of a
lost your
sudden,
whole crew.
everybody just drops stuff and turns around and starts marching out. I'm like,
Oh no.
I got it now. So
Oops.
yeah,
Yeah.
he hates it for Miami. So, but I called the labor company and they got more people. And we finished the project, and then I
Yeah.
swore I would never do a project in Miami again.
It's incredible to me how big this people problem has become, and you know, folks are trying to fix it from all directions, you know, from the stuff that they're doing at Lidditz, you know, uh the production, I forget what it's called, but the production training thing that they do once a year.
Yeah, Stuart and Jake are doing that, and
Yeah,
Digby.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
all have their own little, yeah.
No, I mean, and it's incredible. You know, and I know Sooner was working on something. I don't know if she ended up doing that, but again, all to try and bring more people back into the industry. And Sooner had a great take on it, and I've mentioned this before, but she talked to me and said one of the things that really gets people to open their eyes big and wide when you start talking to new people who are considering coming into this industry, they didn't realize that it's actually a real career. You know, that you can make 100 grand a year pretty quickly in this industry if you get out and work hard and meet the right people and do the right stuff. You can create a pretty nice career in this industry and see the world and meet some incredible people and have some incredible experiences.
Yeah.
She said most people think it's a gypsy life, you know, and it certainly can be if you get on the
No,
wrong tour or something like you talked about,
I
not being
remember
fed
getting
for a
asked.
couple of days.
I remember getting asked one time. I'm like, "So you're like a carny?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
I
It's
mean,
funny how people see it like that.
they think of it as circus, carnival, and then like this crazy lifestyle where
Yeah,
it's just sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and now
yeah.
everybody's on their phone on
We all
TikTok.
miss that.
Yeah,
Everyone misses those days. You know, those have been gone for a long time. But no, it's funny. You know, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is and we have no agenda, by the way, so you know we can talk about anything you
me
want to
neither.
talk about. But you were one of the guys, not to blow too much smoke up your skirt here, but you had a really strong pivot during COVID to the aerial thing, the drone
Yeah,
thing. Is that still going on?
it is. I'm not doing as much with it personally. I mean, so I got to do a shoot in May for a week. That was awesome. We went to Pismo Beach and did some filming for a project. But I have drone pilots now that are flying for me, and I'm my attorney that does all of our drone licensing and stuff with the FAA to try and get us permissions to fly in places we're not supposed to.
Right.
Is also the one that's working on challenging the FAA on this remote ID thing. And for those of you who don't know, basically after September 15th, any person with a cell phone can pull, if they see a drone flying, they can pull up their phone and they can see who the pilot is, where the pilot is, what drone they're flying. Yeah, it's silly. I don't mind if the FAA
it's just a gotcha thing, right?
Yeah, and the police have it, but you're literally giving Karens a weapon to drive around and beat bitches all day, and I've encountered a bunch of them. And
on that topic, so right here where I'm at my house up in Canada, Jeremy brought his Mavic Pro when he got it for Christmas or whatever. He brought it up here, and he didn't realize he's not.
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, but where we are, there's a company called Alpine Helicopters very near us, and they just fly straight up into the mountains. Like every 15, 20 minutes, they've got helicopters going up and back for tourists, and they do some rescue stuff and whatever, but it's mostly tourism. And so we're right in their flight path, right? And so Jeremy's puts his drone up in the air and goes out flying, and he's over top of this lady walking her dog. And he's getting a crack up out of this because she's looking up and yelling and cursing at him and stuff for having this drone. And he's probably, I don't know, 75, 80 feet above her head. And so she started throwing rocks at the drone. And he's like, he comes over to me with his phone and he goes, "Dad, you got to see this. This lady's going nuts throwing rocks at my drone." And I'm like, "What are you doing?" So he started getting warnings on his phone that, you're in a flight path and blah blah blah.
Yep.
Yeah, so he got in some trouble and hasn't flown his drone in Canada since then.
So Canada's got like crazy restrictions. Like to be a drone pilot, I guess legally you have to have a radio, you have to have air charts of the area that you're flying in. It's like a whole shopping list. It's crazy. Like the Canadians just are not allowing drones at all. But
Canadians like their rules.
Yes,
the government here definitely likes rules. They like to control their people. I will tell you that. So so the drone business is going well. I'm waiting to make my next big purchase because obviously there's some legal issues with one of the drone manufacturers that we use quite regularly. So, what's that?
Well, DJI may be being outlawed in the U.S. I don't think it's going to pass, but they're going after them pretty hard because they're saying that the intel from the drones could be used in the Chinese government and
they're a Chinese company.
Yeah,
so they're feeding data back or whatever.
But like the police, the fire department, they all use DJI drones. They're the best.
Yeah,
I mean they are.
They're the biggest too, right? Like they started before everybody else and got going real big before everybody else, and they sort of helped create the industry or the market.
They did, and I mean, and their new stuff is amazing. And it the $100,000 drone that we have is going to be obsolete in another couple months. Yeah. I mean, their new drone, the Inspire 3, it's amazing. I went and saw it at NAB, and I was like, this thing is a game changer. It has all the features pre-wired in, and I could literally put the camera on it and fly it out in 15 minutes, where on the bigger heavy lift drones it takes us an hour to wire it up.
And so what's this new Inspire 3 thing cost?
That's the other thing. It's about $25,000 for the cinema version, which is still really cheap.
It's game changing. I mean, compared to the stuff that you'd have to bring to a shoot.
I mean, like our red cam setup is $15,000. The Movi is 15, so there's 30, and then the drone's another 60 or 45. So yeah, Jesus. With all the batteries.
That's crazy.
And stuff. So,
I have a friend in Florida who was a very successful real estate, like mortgage broker. He's got a real estate license as well, but very successful mortgage broker. And he started this whole thing called, like, I think it's called the Digital Mortgage Guy, where he was doing these videos, and he was just doing like TikTok videos or Instagram videos, and he just started getting a huge amount of traffic on them. And it was just like, hey, you want to sell more real estate? Here's what you need to do. And he'd make it real funny, where like he was having conversations with himself and stuff, like just TikTok sort of stuff, right? But directed towards his business. And he got real successful, but he also got really passionate on the photography side of things and kept getting more expensive gear. And I kept talking to him going, what are you doing there? Because I wanted to learn the cheap version of how to do what he was doing. And long story short, he's completely ditched the real estate business and become a drone guy and a photography guy. And so very specialized on real estate, which obviously drones are pretty popular in shooting real estate. And so he goes out and does shoots for high-end real estate. And because he knows the industry so well, he's guiding them on staging these houses or whatever. And he's guiding them on what kind of shots they want and stuff, so that the realtor isn't just going, well, here's what I want. I want to fly over doing this and la, 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 right? Instead, he'll go, no, this will help sell it better. We've got the stats on it, you know? So, yeah, it's cool. I mean, again, what a cool pivot. Like, you're at the height of your career in real estate and you decide to go become a drone pilot and a photographer.
No, I mean, the drones are fun. Like I travel with my little Mavic 2, the smaller one, and I love it. So I travel with that all the time. It's always in my backpack. I bring my FPV drones on tour with me. I have a road case just for drones that
What's
I bring
an
on tour.
FPV drone?
You know, where you wear the goggles and you fly
Oh,
around.
yeah. Jeremy has that, yeah.
So I was in Detroit at the Caesars Arena, and there was an issue with load in. One of the trucks got in late, so we were hours delayed. So went to the bus, grabbed my stuff, went up, started flying around in the city. And I'm just sitting on the curb, and I can see the security guards all on their radio while I'm flying around. So I'm zipping the buses, going in between the trucks. I was having a blast. And the guy comes out, and I got my laminate on. He goes, you know, you can't fly that here. I'm like, yeah, I know. I just have been waiting for you guys to come up here and tell me to stop.
That's funny.
So yeah, I needed a little bit. It was great though. It's a great little release, you know.
But again, I mean, that to me was like there were a handful of really cool pivots during COVID, and that was definitely one of them. You know, I mean, the thing Upstaging did with all the masks and stuff, that was really cool, but that wasn't a sustainable business. Yours actually became a sustained and real business, and is a big part of your life still, and will continue to be, and may become, when you really get sick of being a production manager, it might become, you know, your full-time gig again. So, which may be sooner than later based on what you're telling me here. So, yeah. It's funny because I wanted to put your logo up on the screen for this podcast, but I didn't know which one to put up because there's so many backstage this, backstage that, backstage everything.
There's 5 versions of Backstage coming up now.
No, but I meant just your businesses within Backstage.
Yes, Backstage Aerial and Backstage Productions are the two.
And then there's a whole bunch of other Backstage Productions.
Backstage. There's a porn site.
Of course there is. You haven't made it until there's a porn site with your name, you know?
Yeah, that one of my friends pointed out to me while we were on the bus. He's like, look, Backend Productions. I'm like, close. You're close. I mean, I get the joke. It's funny, but it's not the same. It doesn't say Backstage.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I used to have an 866 number, I think. And if you called 800 instead of 866, you got, I don't remember what it was, but it was like, hi, thank you. Oh, I'm so happy you called. It was a sex line. And
I can top this.
The first one, whoever told me about it, was Marcia Stern. Marcia calls me and goes, Marcel? She calls me on my cell, and I go, yeah. And she goes, I just called your office number, and it's a sex line. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Oh, you should have followed along with that. God, that would have been great.
Yeah,
Been like,
yeah. Well, business has been a little rough, Marcia, so I've had to take on some extra work. So which me do you want? Do you want me, the one that talks you into oblivion, or do you want me that sells you some shit? I could do either. I could go either way.
so we had an 800 line when I had my Minneapolis office, and we were one digit off from the Rolanda show or whatever, Rwanda or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
was. Anyway, so, and I didn't catch it for about a week, and then people call up and they'd be like, "Yo, I want to talk about this." And so we figured out that every day at 2 o'clock on Monday through Thursday, we would start getting calls, and we had multiple lines, so we would all sit in different rooms and just fuck with them. And
Ah,
and he's like, "I'm gonna tell her." I'm like, "Okay, hold on, hang on, do not hang up. You're gonna hear a bunch of clicks. Okay, hold up." Oh, they just took another call. Sorry. And then we'd play with them, and they'd be like, "Okay, you're going on air. You're going on air. Here we go. Here you go." Boop. You hang up. And
that's
we did
hilarious.
it for weeks, and then I realized that I was paying my employees to have fun at my expense.
Oh, that's
So
so
we
funny.
canceled the 800 number, but we had the 800 number so that the guys on the road could call in, because I got tired of, remember the calling cards?
Yeah.
I hated calling cards. Everybody got their calling card that they had to enter their
Yeah, I
phone
remember
number.
those. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a situation like that, like literally, I don't know, 40 years ago. I worked in a music store, and my desk was about 10 feet from this other guy's desk who was just a goofball idiot. And so I give him a phone number that's one of our back lines into our phone system. I give him a phone number and I say, call this guy back. He wants to buy a flute or something really stupid, right? And so he'd call it, and I'd answer quietly on the phone 10 feet away from this guy, right? I'd go, hello. And he'd say, yeah, is John there? And I'd be like, oh, no, John can't come to the phone. He's very busy burying the dog, or whatever. I'd make up something stupid. Can you call me back in 2 minutes? And so he'd call back 2 minutes later. And then he'd come to me and he'd go, this fucking guy, I keep trying to call him. And there's so many different reasons. Like they buried the dog. They had to put the car out. It was on fire. The daughter threw up on herself. Like it's just so many different problems. And I'm just trying to sell him a flute, and I'm dying laughing. Uh,
You reminded me, like, because we were all kids when I started Backstage Productions. I started it when I was 18, when we owned gear.
yeah.
And so by by the mid 90s, we're still in our 20s. And the guys I had working for me were 18 and 19. So we were all like little punk kids. And so, and we had gear at our disposal. So like
Right.
when we knew, like solicitors would go, because we were in a warehouse park. So people would drop and they'd try and sell us copiers or whatever. And the first couple of times we put a no soliciting sign. But after that, if you came in after the no soliciting sign was up,
Yeah.
your whole day was going to be ruined, and you were probably going to be recorded. We didn't, YouTube wasn't around then. We just recorded it for our own shits and giggles. But we had Matt was one of our techs. It was like he was our cable cleaner guy, a little fat kid,
Yeah.
and he would take his shirt off and he'd grab a bottle of Jack Daniels from the bar, and he'd walk around from the warehouse and come in and be like, "What's up?" And he goes, we're here to sell you a Kinko or a copier, a Canon copier. Yeah, can you do color? And he'd sit down and start grilling them, and he'd be like, we do a lot of porn here, buddy. So we're shooting covers, and the
That's
guy's
hilarious.
frozen, and he's taking chugs out of the Jack Daniels
Oh
bottle.
my God, that's
This would go
funny.
on for like a half hour, never to return. It's perfect. And then of
That's
course,
funny.
every once in a while, somebody would return.
Yeah, I had a crazy brother-in-law one time at Christmas. It was literally Christmas Day, and Jehovah Witness came to the door, and this was in Canada again 40 years ago or something, and he goes, "Let me handle this," and he dumps ketchup all down his t-shirt and goes to the front door, and he's like, "What?" And they're like, we just wanted to talk to you about Jesus Christ." And he goes, "I just killed my mother. Come in, let's talk about it." And they're like, "No, no, no." And they go running to the freaking street, and they're like out of there, man. So the police never showed up, remarkably,
Yeah,
but
you can't do that now.
no. I mean, it was funny back then, but yeah, I mean, it's like I don't even know if I want to tell you this because some people will see it as being mean, but I remember when we were kids, and you know how people would come up to you on the street and say, "Got any spare change?" You know, we used to, when you'd see them sort of out of your peripheral vision coming towards you and getting ready to ask if you got any spare change, you'd go up to them and go, "Excuse me, sir, you got any spare change?" And they just look at you like really confused, like, "I was going to ask you that," you know, and then give them $1 or something, you know, just because it was fun. But no, I mean, that's it. So, how long were you in Minnesota for? Ages, or you were born there? I don't
No,
remember.
I was born in Chicago,
Right,
and then I moved when I was like 7, much against my will, to Minneapolis.
right.
My dad switched jobs, and I hated it.
It
And
happens.
then I left. Well, I started coming to LA. So I sold the assets of Backstage Productions in 2003, and I started coming to LA in 2004, like because I was managing bands, and I would
Right,
stay at the Rock and Roll Hyatt on Sunset, and
as you
it
do.
got to the point where
The
I
Riot
had my
House.
own room. Yeah, so I had if you stayed more than like a couple of months at a time, they would give you a locker in a room, and then that would be your room when you would check in. So
Why would you stay a couple of months at a time
I
at the
stayed
Riot
there for a
House?
year.
Jesus.
So I would come back and forth between Minneapolis and LA for, I don't know, like a week at a time, and I wouldn't have to bring clothes, and I had a deadbolt key, and I had a fish tank in my room and everything. It was awesome.
That's awesome. That's
And then I
hilarious.
realized that I probably should get an apartment here, because the money I've spent at the Rock and Roll Hyatt would have been like a penthouse suite for an apartment for the year. So
So coming up here this trip, I decided I had this ingenious idea that I was going to ship my car. First, I was going to ship it directly to Canada, and instead of renting a car up here, because I'm here for several months, right? And I should just buy one, but I haven't yet. But so I have this idea. I'm going to ship my car up, and getting it into Canada was really complicated and really expensive. So then I was going to ship it to Montana. So I booked a flight to Bozeman, Montana, and had the shipment booked. And then the shipping guy started getting really flaky, where he was telling me, "Yeah, you know, we can't confirm the day. We can't confirm, and it could be canceled last minute because Bozeman, Montana is not a common trip." And I'm like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that when I booked it? You know, like you said, they go to Seattle and they can drop it on the way to Seattle in Bozeman, Montana." So we booked a date, and I booked a flight to get there sort of the day later or the day earlier. I can't remember. And I figured I'll be in Montana for a few days. No big deal. Get a hotel. It's nice. And so it just got so flaky to where I was like, well, where's a sure thing that you got loads of trucks going there? And they said Chicago. So I look at the map, and Chicago from my house in Canada is about 20 hours driving. And I've got a friend who has a island and with a house on it on Lake Vermilion in Minnesota.
oh
And
wow,
so I figured, you know, me and my girlfriend will stop there for a couple days or whatever, hang out with them on the lake and do some fishing or whatever, just have fun, drink beer, I don't know. And so I went to Chicago. We flew into Chicago, picked up the car. And one of the things that is striking to me driving through first Wisconsin and then Minnesota, because it was, I don't remember how many hours, 11 hours or something to get to Vermilion, but how much roadkill there is. I've
oh
never seen
yeah,
any I've never seen anything like it. Like we lost count at about 30 deer between the start of Wisconsin and getting to I think I can't remember where we stopped in Minnesota, but maybe we went all the way to Vermilion. I don't know, but we it's like 30 deer just laying on the side of the road dead, you know?
it reminds me of. Do you remember the movie Basketball, when he's driving down the road and all the animals are jumping in front of his car and they're all dying?
No,
He's like,
I
oh,
can't say I
like
saw
that.
that one.
That's. I
No,
mean,
but
it
what is
was
it though? Are there more being killed, or do they just not clean them up quickly?
both. I mean, yeah, there's a way more deer in Wisconsin, and raccoons and possums and all kinds of crap. And so, yeah.
But
And
deer,
the
especially,
semi.
like so many deer. I've never seen so many deer dead, probably in my whole life. And I'm from Alberta, Canada. You know, we got a lot of deer here too, but I've never seen so many.
I remember I was in a box truck driving down to Chicago from Minneapolis, and you know, when a deer's in the road and you're in a semi truck, you put the gas pedal to the floor. Like you don't brake. You just you plow right through them. You know, because if you try and stop, the trailer is going to go. Yeah, I mean the semi truck drivers. When I got my Class A license when I was 24, they told me never lift, put the pedal to the metal, and just and explode the deer. I thought it was a joke until I watched it happen, because I was on the receiving end of what happens afterward. So I was behind a semi truck. I was about 4 car lengths back. So it was enough for whatever got hit to go up and sideways. And it literally covered my car, and it looked like a CSI crime scene, or my truck.
God.
I had to pull over and scrub the windows and wash all the deer meat and gunk off of it, and so I could see out the windshield. But I mean, it vaporized this thing.
Wow. So I just didn't understand like how the hell there were so many dead deer on the side of the road. We were just like, there's something weird here. Like, you know, felt like we were in a movie or something. Like just literally every couple of miles you'd see another deer. And so we started counting them and got to like 31 or 32 or something, and then just said there's too many. So.
Yeah, I hit a deer once when I was a kid, and it literally, like, it was super icy out, and he slipped and went under my SUV. So I get out. I thought I'd killed him, and just as I got to the front, we're eye to eye, and he pops up. I'm like, whoa!
What movie is that where he puts it in the back seat? Tommy Boy, right? And the thing wakes up and rips the freaking the top off the convertible. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a hilarious scene right there. Yeah, they were crying.
That's the deer story. But yes, the deer in Minnesota are a little crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Vermilion, to the lake?
Oh yeah, I've been up to everybody's cabins. I mean, so the thing about when you live in Minnesota, you have to go to a cabin, or you have to own a cabin. Like that's your weekend thing.
Right.
And I wasn't fortunate enough to have one. My father was like, let's move to a lake, and then we have the cabin already here, and I don't have to go mow out 2 lawns or make Patrick do yard work in different places.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you lived on a lake?
We did.
Oh, nice. So
I started sailing when I was like 12 years old.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah,
I always dreamed of living on a lake, but we were the poor people who like couldn't even live close enough to a lake where you could smell it or see it or anything, you know?
But he also put up with a lot of stuff, because I remember when I learned about what flash powder was, my band and I were shooting a music video, and we decided that we needed flame pods. So we took Estes rocket igniters and put them in bottle caps that we had screwed to boards, and filled them with flash powder.
Yeah.
And we had the little, guy running around with the VCR on his hip, that big camcorder and the cable running up. And we realized that we weren't getting enough flash. We needed a bigger fire, and we weren't sure how to do that. And then I got the genius idea of putting, instead of using bottle caps with flash powder, we would use like pop or soda cans with the bottom cut out, and then we put a little gasoline in there, because you got the flash and the flame.
Oh yeah,
and my dad
brilliant!
came home just at that time when I turned the driveway up and had little burn spots all over the driveway.
No.
We just had re-blacktopped. So
not good. Not good.
That was a dump truck full of rock for that.
Yeah, week. In my first band, we had flash pods, and we used like junction boxes with, and then we used a high beam switch out of a car. Remember when we used to have the little click switch in the cars in the 70s, right? So we used a high beam switch with wires going to the junction box, and those were our flash pods. And then just by mixing a combination of gunpowder and flash powder, you got the boom and the flash, right? But it wasn't safe. I mean, there was nothing safe about it,
No. Yeah. No, I'm glad that I didn't know about the gunpowder part, because we would have the boom. But we wanted to be kissed so bad it wasn't even funny.
Everybody wanted to be kissed. It was the 70s, we all wanted to be kissed. I remember seeing them changed my life. I was like, man, how do I do that?
Yep.
And now it's 2023 and I'm like, how do we stop them? How can we retire Kiss?
Gene's never going to retire. As long as there's a checkbook, I think he'll keep playing the
Yeah,
farewell tour.
I mean, they're doing all the festivals in Europe right now. It's unbelievable. Like they just don't stop. I saw, you know, those Axis interviews with Dan
Yeah.
Rather. He just had Paul Stanley on one, and it was actually really interesting. You know, Paul Stanley's a pretty smart guy, and just talked about how he's survived so long, and you know, how he treats people and stuff. He's actually a pretty decent guy, Paul Stanley. Gene, on the other hand, is a little different. He's a little rougher around the edges, perhaps. Yeah. So how long are you home?
Well, I'm home for a while, so I'm working on a couple of corporate projects right now. So it's paperwork, and then I've got some projects that we're tentatively working on for Dubai in the Middle East. So it'd be Dubai, Riyadh, and Qatar, and then South Korea, Singapore, Vegas, and I'm trying to think there's one other, Australia and New Zealand. So
Damn.
Yeah, and so I've been kind of pulling back a little bit for this year because I've been dealing with paperwork with lawyers and corporations and all that fun stuff. So there'll be an announcement soon enough, hopefully. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been a very interesting year. And then
I look forward to hearing those stories.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of fall projects that we have that are like our fitness show that we do every year, and there's another car project that we're working on,
and then you've got some goofy weird shit that you're doing with Patrick Dearson, where you guys, for whatever reason, I don't know why I'm the friend that always gets the FaceTime call when you guys are doing something ridiculous, but I do appreciate it, by the way, because those are pretty funny. But
so there's a story to this.
Yeah.
So I see the picture of Patrick Dearson's birthday present to himself, which is the Humvee. Very cool. But when I saw it, he had a fake 50 cal mounted on top, or some sort of rifle on top. And so I texted him. I'm like, hey, we're flying into Jet Suite X, and it was somebody from another lighting company, and then me. We were going to do a site survey, and he writes, is it just the two of you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, great, I'll pick you up in the Hummer. And I'm like, fuck yes. Then I think about it. I'm meeting this client face to face for the first time ever. I'm like, bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's not do this. And he goes, okay, I'll pick you up in some other car. And I'm like, I don't think he owns that, but all right. So we land at Jet Suite X, and he said, walk to the end of the parking lot. I'm parked on the end. I'm like, who the park's over there? He's not parked in the parking lot. He's parked on the gravel over the curb, right as the entrance into Jet Suite X. Like Jet Suite X has been invaded by the military.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh fucking God. And he's got tons of people around him taking pictures. And we get in this thing, and I cannot stop laughing. And I'm like, all right, he took the gun off. We're fine. It's just, we're going meet the client, and hopefully they don't even see the car.
But it's got a turret on it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's got night vision. He's got what looks like a little moving light on the back that is night vision. It's retarded.
It's unreal. Did he make this thing, or did he buy it like that?
He bought it from some guy in Arizona, I'm sure, from some weird militia or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's bulletproofed, and
wow.
Right now it would be a great vehicle for LA, but and I was like, I really want this for LA, but and for the people that brake check me, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that it doesn't have very much pickup, so it takes a while to get to like 55. But once it's rolling, it's moving.
It's hard to stop.
You see the black smoke come out of the stacks.
Yeah, but the one before that was even funnier. Like, I mean, that one was funny. Like, I'll be sitting on the couch at 10 o'clock at night watching a movie with my girlfriend or something, and I'll get a text, and it's like you and Dearson doing something ridiculous. But I can't remember.
We were doing, I think we were probably doing the roller skating rink at Grammys.
I don't remember. No, there was another one. Maybe an airplane. The jet. Yeah.
Yeah, that was from the corporate show we were on
Oh my
last year.
God. You guys are nuts.
So the thing I like about Dearson is that we you know you always kind of want to work with people like-minded, and one of the things that I don't want to do and I don't have time to do is have to micromanage or have to coach you through what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I think he likes working with me because I just leave him alone and let him do his thing. And I'll be like, here's where we're at for the budget, and then he goes and creates this magic.
Plus, you guys
Um,
can share hair products.
we can, um, but I really respect his work, and one of the things that I think I really appreciate is when every show has issues, no
Yeah.
matter where you are in the world or what you're doing. There's never been a perfect show in my life, and it's having that team with you that not only makes you look good, but also can make themselves very useful. And his plethora of knowledge, when something's not done right by another person, or, in this case, we had some content that wasn't filmed correctly, but the whole show was queued around it. We didn't see it until the day of because this guy's such a nimrod. And Dearson rebuilt and reprogrammed the show literally in a couple hours and saved it. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff, and figured out, here's how we're going to make this tie into this stupid video that this clown made that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's why I like working with him. I mean,
Well, it's nice to work with people you like too. People you get
yeah,
along with and can have some fun with, and they're
yeah,
not too uptight, and yet they are professional at what they do. So I've always been a fan of Dearson. I've always liked
yeah.
Dearson. So
And like the chill thing, like like I fucking hate drama on show site, and it happens all the time. But if I know that somebody's drama, they won't work with me. Like I
yeah,
don't have time for it. They could be the best LDA or designer in the world, and if I know there's going to be a nuclear meltdown and I'm going to have to talk them off a cliff, or they're going to throw a temper tantrum behind the console,
it's not
not
worth it.
interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
So
worth it.
that's where every penny that he's paid is it's worth.
Yeah,
Except not too many pennies, Patrick.
cool. Well, I got nothing else, unless you do. Anything you're promoting? Anything you're trying to give away? Anything you're?
Not yet. I'll promote later.
All right,
Um,
all right. Let me
and
know. We'll
enough,
talk about it.
and then you'll be like, why didn't you mention this on the podcast? I'm like, because it wasn't allowed to yet. So
Yeah,
soon.
cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, buddy. I know you're busy, and
Well,
it's
thank
always
you
fun to
very much.
it's always fun to
Always.
check in with you, of course. So,
Oh, really quick before, and you can cut this out. How's Jeremy doing?
he's doing great. He's living in England. He switched teams, which is really hard to do mid-season. Because you do 5 or 6 tests with the team that you're on at before the season starts. You might do, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 test days before you even start the season. So they get your car set up perfectly to you. They get used to how you want the car set up. You get used to the car. And so mid-season, when you switch, it's like, boom, you're just thrown straight into the fire. So
So it's like a completely different car then, too, right?
he had his first weekend with, well, it's technically the same car, but they're all different. It's a carbon fiber tub that they all have nuances. Engines have nuances, gearboxes have nuances. And then just the way the engineers believe the car should be set up is totally different. Like every engineer has a different philosophy or whatever. But we had hoped the first weekend in the new car would go better. I think he got a couple of 6th place finishes or whatever. He just couldn't get up to speed in the new car. But the team are unbelievable. Like some of the nicest people I think I've ever met in racing. They're Scottish. They're based in Scotland.
Wow.
And so this weekend, he was supposed to be back in Florida visiting his friends and his mom and stuff from last week until next week. And the team asked him to cancel it and do this thing. I don't know if you know who Jim Clark was. So Jim Clark was a very early pioneer in motorsport. He won his first Formula One championship exactly 60 years ago, and he's from a place called Dun, Scotland. And so every sort of big year, like the 50th, the 40th, the 30th. He died in a race in 1978 or 88. I can't remember, but I think 78, maybe even 68. I think 68. He died in 68. And, but in 63, he won his first Formula One championship. And so this was the 60th anniversary, and they did this big thing at the Dunn's Castle. And, and so, you know, they had all of his historic Formula One cars. They had music, they had food, they had a big celebration, big festival kind of thing. And they had Jeremy's race car on display with Jeremy there, like taking pictures with people and signing autographs and letting little kids sit in his car and stuff. It was really, really, he said it was one of the coolest weekends he's ever had.
So is that did I see a video of him like driving down the street in his car?
Yeah.
Because the truck,
yeah. So the transporter wasn't allowed to pull onto the garden in front of the castle, of course. And so it was parked a couple of blocks away. And so, yeah, him and his teammate had to drive their cars through the streets to get to the transporter. Yeah, it was just such a wild experience, cool experience.
Is the end goal to be a Formula One driver? Or
that's the unrealistic end goal, you know, and I say that because right now Formula One has become very much a money game from a standpoint of who the drivers are. So
I can't believe how much Formula One in the last 2 years has exploded.
Netflix.
Is that what it is?
It's Netflix. Yeah, that Netflix series. You'd be amazed how many people either message me on social media or come up to me at LDI or at different trade shows or on the street and say, you know, they'll ask me, how's Jeremy doing? And I'll be like, that's weird. Oh, you know, like I talk to more people about racing at LDI these days than I do lighting or gear. But, you know, and they'll say, you know, I was never a fan, but I got into that Netflix series and I love it now. And I watch every race and I'm figuring it all out. And it created God knows how many. It probably doubled the fan base of at least open wheel racing, but lots of different kinds of racing. So, you know, even in the stuff that my son does, the amount of fans that are out, like this is more of a British thing though. Like in England, junior racing series do really well from a fan base standpoint. So like he's constantly got people coming up asking for his autograph, or they'll come up with like a picture of you from like the session this morning, you know, and they'll have like an 8x10 glossy picture of you and they'll say, can you sign this for me, please? And he's like, where the hell did you get that? You know? Yeah. They're rabid racing fans there. And the funny thing is they've got girls who are quite interested in racing drivers. And so there's even a term for it called racer chasers. And so he's got girls hitting him up constantly on Instagram and stuff, you know, because they just love racing drivers. Whereas here, girls couldn't care less about racing drivers. Like, you're a dork, you know, if you're a racing driver. They like musicians and actors. So, yeah, he's having a great time. I mean, he misses home. You know, he's been gone now since February. And so he misses home. He misses his parents. He misses his friends. But the experiences are just unreal. Like, now he's been to Scotland a couple of times. He's been to a lot of places he never would have dreamed of going. He's actually considering moving to Scotland. They've offered him a job as a driver coach at the track there in Scotland.
Wow.
Just pocket money while he's there. You know what I mean? Like for a few months to have some extra cash in your pocket or whatever.
I'm sorry, I know we're still recording.
It's all good.
So what is, like, after this, as he gets older, obviously junior racing is to a certain age, right?
Yeah, not really. I mean, you can do it forever, but yeah, sort of. Yeah.
But like,
where are we going?
What's high on the prize for Jeremy at this point after?
Paid to drive something. So, you know, he wants to be a professional racing driver. He wants to drive for a living. He has no other passions in life other than driving. And so there's a lot of different roads you can go down. Most of them are painfully expensive until you get to a point where someone says, hey, I want that kid. You know, I'm the vice president of motorsports at General Motors, and I want that kid racing on our team. Or, you know, I'm Roger Penske, and I want your son racing for our team. There's only so many of those around, and there's lots and lots of drivers. And, you know, the biggest challenge that we have against us right now is I'm nowhere near as wealthy as 99% of the people in motorsports right now. So, you know, you've got billionaires and hundreds of millionaires and tens of millionaires, and they're not afraid to spend the money to get their kid being pushed up the ladder. So you can buy seats.
Is not paid.
Driver what?
Is he being paid right now to drive?
No,
or not?
We pay.
Oh, shit.
So a combination of myself and my companies, and then some very gracious people in our industry, Ayrton, Eric Loader, Wiseman. There's you know, Act Entertainment. Sorry, Christie Lights. There's loads of companies in our industry, Mainlight, who've been very supportive of Jeremy and his career as sponsors for him. So
I thought he was getting paid while he's driving now.
No, he's probably a couple of steps away from that at this point. Like, you know, there's ways to get paid. Like, you can go out and race in GT cars with a gentleman driver, which is basically a rich guy who has a Lamborghini and wants to race. And so you're the pro driver that's with the amateur. So it's sort of a pro-am kind of thing. What's that?
The SIG.
Yeah. Stig.
Or Stig.
Yeah, Stig. But so you know, again, who knows? I mean, it's his dream. You know, the ultimate dream of every kid doing what he's doing is Formula One. There's only 20 seats, and there's loads of billionaires who have kids that want them. And so, you know, like all of the companies, Mercedes and Ferrari and stuff, they'll say they don't care about whether the driver's rich or not. But when somebody's writing them a check for 50 or 60 or $70 million for that seat for 1 year, you know, get in line behind them, right? So talent, you can earn your way up the ladder on merit. It's really hard. It's much easier if you got loads of money. Like, I know people I've got a few friends who are driving in IndyCar right now who paid for their seats, you know? So the driver might get a $500,000 salary, but dad or somebody paid $4 million for the year. So yeah, the kid's getting a salary, but somebody paid $4 million for the kid to be in that seat.
Like the pay to play for the rock clubs in LA.
And it's not one season either. Like, you got to buy 2 or 3 seasons. So it might be $12 million, and they'll give you a $500,000 a year salary to do it.
So I have a great closing one, because I'm an idiot when it comes to racing, and then I'll let you go.
So am I, because I keep paying for it.
Yeah. I got a call from Porsche to go down to the track in Carson and production manage for the day. And they're like, you have to sign all these NDAs. And so I'm like, no problem. So I sign all the NDAs. The last one is Mercedes. I'm like, why am I signing a Mercedes NDA at the Porsche track? So I sign it. And they're like, oh, it's a long story. So it's me and 3 other people. And I got there early. And later on, it was going to be Brad Pitt. I didn't know that, but basically they're training for a movie that they're going to shoot.
Yeah,
so
Formula One
talking
movie.
To this guy, and really nice guy. He's tiny and British accent, and I'm like, oh, you know, what do you do? And he goes, oh, I drive for a living. So we're chatting for like an hour. People keep walking by, and they're freaking out that I'm talking to this guy. And I'm like, whatever. I'm like, I'm sure he's just a coach or something. Well, it's Lewis Hamilton. I had no clue who he was.
You didn't know Lewis Hamilton?
No.
Wow. Oh, that's
not
interesting.
At all.
That's funny. Yeah, so, I've met his dad a bunch of times, because his dad used to come over here and consult for some very wealthy American or Canadian drivers who were in karting at the time and were moving their way up to get into Formula One. And a couple of them actually did, and he helped them get there. But yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Super nice guy. Well, thank you again for doing this.
No, thank you. Appreciate you, and look forward to hearing your stories and catching up next time too.
Sounds good. Talk to you
later.
All
right, bub. Yeah, we'll see you.